Good evening. This is Ronald Allen, managing change and all my papers falling down through effective communications. This discussion is about the entrepreneur in you. And I am talking about this simply because, my goodness, I'm 60 plus, been around the sun about 720 times, and I've always considered myself an entrepreneur, even when I was working with companies. Good evening, Anne. Thanks for checking in with us. And even when I was an employee with a company, I always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I've had the pleasure, good evening, MD, thanks for checking in with us. Even when I was an employee, I always had the perspective of what else can I add? And in many cases, that caused a little challenge. So tonight I wanted to kind of share with you what an entrepreneur really is. What you as, if you're selling something on the side of the road, lemonade, what are those biscuits? Girl Scout cookies, Amway in your living room, to those who are creating significant technology shifts, as I'm sure you heard about Richard Knoll, a 13-year-old who created an app, got on Ellen DeGeneres. I believe he's been on Oprah Winfrey, so he's pretty much made. What's behind that, though, is absolutely crucial, especially people of my age who may be just coming into self-employment, those who have been weathering the storm, right? No hair. I removed my gray. I will not dye my hair. That's something I just won't do. Excuse me a minute. I just dropped something which I'm going to share with you. It's to do with what they refer to as the Brickyard. This is the Indianapolis Speedway, and I want to share with you why that is significant with the discussion today, and what is also significant, and that is a gentleman, Alexandre Dumas, who's a French writer, 1840s, who wrote two extremely significant novels, which we still follow today, Hollywood still makes movies of today, which speaks to the stick-to-itiveness, the resourcefulness of this individual, not just the stories, but how he got them to be published. So just one second, I have to nod down here and pick up these items. But grab your pen and pad. I guarantee you this is going to be really interesting, and you'll be able to reflect on your own desire, passion, resolve to make a business, to rekindle that business, that interest, and even something that you're just simply passionate about. And it's not hype, it's strategy. It's strategy that works for you. I'll be right back. I'm back. Okay, so first off, I want to kind of speak to you about all the resources that are out here that small businesses, and by the way, being a small business could be a writer, an author, a poet. It could be someone who is a comedian, stage. It can be anyone that's generating your business primarily as a 1099, a self-employed. It can be an LLC, a partnership, a C Corp, any of those designations. You can also be, of course, a 501c3, which, you know, I'm kind of disturbed when people say, well, I have no money because I'm non-profit. Can I just introduce you to the Roman Catholic Church? Can I introduce you to Blue Cross Blue Shield of any state USA? These are all non-profits, and they are extremely profitable. Understanding the designation of what non-profit means is the difference. I cannot simply take my profits and invest how I care to. There are legal ways, there are structures, both financial, IRS, and otherwise, to maneuver, which that's what business really is. Maybe I should have called this, instead of the entrepreneur in you, I should have called it how to maneuver in business, right? Gambits, you've heard me use that word, that term before. Kevin, good evening, thanks for checking in with us. So let's kind of kick off with all the usual stuff, right? Well, you've got SBA, Small Business Administration, SCORE, society of corporate retired individuals who I've had the pleasure of working with 4 different groups as I'm in New Jersey. An hour and 50 minutes north of me is New York, 43 miles west of me is Pennsylvania, and an hour and 15 minutes south of me is Delaware, the state of Delaware. So I'm centrally located. Concentration of businesses and opportunities are all around me. The challenge for any entrepreneur, as it is for me, is to identify my core target market and go after it like a heat-seeking missile. Laser focus. To get started, you need to create certain mass. Think of politicians coming into office. They need to create a critical, beneficial outcome within the first 3 months. Otherwise, the stimulus under which they won their office wears off. So I'm going to share with you some similarities across the board, as I believe I always do. Business, you are an individual. You have a passion for business. You have family, however that's defined. You have interests, however those are defined. And they all make part of you. They all are a part of you. So use them in the tactical and strategic manners that you can. And don't think of it as separate and apart. It is an appendage. So you've got the SBA, you've got SCORE, you've got an organization called PTAG, which is Professional Technical Assistance. I have used them, certainly in Newark, New Jersey. Excellent organization. They help you with the fundamentals and technicals of setting up the business. It's like going to your accountant or your lawyer, a business consultant, setting up a board of directors. It doesn't matter if you're selling ice cream on the side of the road. Who's your board of directors? Mommy and daddy. Maybe your uncle. Maybe a good friend down the road. They can say to you, well, you know what? If you use sackcloth to sell jewelry, it may not go over as well as selling corn or selling lemonade. You see, it's part of the branding, it's part of marketing, it's part of messaging, it's part of communications. So that committee can be anyone that's helping you and helping you to structure how your business goes forward. And based on their experience, they can be very helpful. I have found, though, again, the litmus test. What is your reality? I have found, though, many people who come out of the corporate environment really know nothing about entrepreneurship. It's doing 3 or 4 of these live chats in one day because you haven't been able to do them during the week. And then, of course, changing my background. So as I go forward, I can put the dates on and people will feel that they're different, right? They know they're different because of the messaging. They know they're getting some fresh material because of my perspective, my experience. The difference that I believe I bring to the table is I'm not telling you what I do is right. I'm sharing with you a perspective and then asking you, how's it working for you, dude? Dudette? That's the difference. Because now with those resources, with the resources I'm certainly going to share with you tonight, the perspective, you'll be able to take away and say, how can I make that my own? You see, the irony is, with our children and our young members in society, that's what they want. Tell me how to do it. Tell me how you did it. Share with me your approaches, mentoring, coaching. Now, let me go out and try it on my own with a safety net. Many of them stay at home, and the safety net is the fact that they really don't have any overhead, so they don't really try. They don't feel the burn, right? They'll go to the Pilates, what is that, bicycle thing? I used to do that on the road, okay? Not in a warehouse full of sweaty, yucky people. Anyway, the bottom line is, you have to stretch. These agencies help you do that. They help you set the ground rules. You do need to set up your own. So there are also what's called CDCs. These are organizations typically funded through some federal legislation. Some of them can be houses of worship. Some of them can be associations, professional, credit, banking, quasi, private, corporate, and government agencies. They are there to help business. They're there to deliver some of the funding, whether it's residential home ownership services, whether it's youth programs, whether it's substance abuse. These CDCs are in your community. You need to seek them out. Then, of course, there's non-profits, which we mentioned. Now, the non-profits can also be typically specific to a set of services. And you'll look under the IRS and you'll see 501c3, and then you'll see other designations. There are about 11. Did you know farmers can be a non-profit? Did you know that, as we mentioned before, corporations can be non-profit because of the direction or the service they deliver? Educational institutions are typically educational non-profits. You can also be what is known as a quasi, where you get a charter from federal or state, and then you are delivering the services with the help of private money. It's very interesting because it's the financial and tax categorization of those businesses that help you as the individual to grow. And then as you blossom and go about your own way, just like children should, don't come back. You're now cut off and you should be self-sustaining because you've learned something. You've learned how to engage in your market. You then can look at, as an entrepreneur, Kevin, good evening. Thanks for checking in if I haven't said hello to you already. You can then look at both federal agencies, of which you know every, if you go into fedbiz.gov, or if you look up federal departments, USA, federal USA agencies, you'll see education, transportation, labor, of course, military. Military has a multitude of different agencies and departments, units. You've got from transportation, everything that the state needs. Education, we said, transportation, labor, of course, that's a big one. Each one has multiple subcategories. So as a small business owner, and what I did, and this is what I'm kind of sharing with you, is that I said, get my designations, we'll go over that in a minute, look at the federal level, and let's take 2 or 3, because they are cumbersome. Takes a while to learn their cycle of when they buy and what they buy and what quantities, and then how do you match your capabilities and readiness, right? You have to have certain designations, you have to have certain capability, you have to have financial, you have to have insurance, okay? So now you're starting to develop your profile. We call that a capability statement. 2 or 3 is more than enough. Even with 2 or 3, you may want to go and get an intern from a college. Therein lies another relationship that you can forge to identify opportunities. Then you've got the state. Well, 50 states and a couple of others who are annexed. You can also look for business in those. What this is driving at, by the way, is if you're looking at the federal, usually it's a year and a half, 2 years, unless you're coming from that agency and you know the footprint that you can walk on, it's usually a year and a half, 2 years, because they need to see that you're a legitimate business. You've been in business for a period of time. It's like seasoning or like compensating factors in a mortgage or a finance. Small business, you need compensating factors to show that you are capable of delivering those goods, services, or benefits, as we use the term in project management. Then you drill down to your state, or in my case, 4 states, because I'm within 3 hours. I don't mind a 3-hour trip to get business. That gives me a broader capability of getting business. There's still some challenges, and we'll get to those. From the state level, you're going to identify the agencies that you need and want and that buy your service, and then you have to identify the people and connections there. By being designated, we'll get to that in a moment, you'll also be positioned to apply, not guaranteed, a contract. You'll be able to apply. They're called RFPs, request for proposal. Once again, you may find it beneficial to partner with a high school, college, or other, where you can get an intern, you can partner with their agency, and maybe even do some bartering. I've done that in the past. So there are multiple ways, but you have to know that they exist, or in some cases literally create it by asking, by communicating. Then you come down to the county level. Well, in the state of New Jersey, I believe there's 22 counties, and they're built up differently. Some cohabitate in outreach, some cohabitate in services that they need so that they can minimize costs, become more efficient, and be able to deliver across a broader platform or menu of services. So once again, you identify who the contacts are. You make sure your profile matches what they say. And then you begin the what I call the real work of voideing them, as a southern term in America. The term is voide, is to select who and when and how you're going to engage, interface with them. This takes time, 3 months, 6 months, maybe even a year. You need backup systems, CRM, right? I use a Google Suite, I use a CRM system, and I effectively use my LinkedIn Sales Navigator. As we go through, I'll interject how these work and how you can use them. And again, it doesn't matter what your product is. You use the system to identify whether these vendors, these primes, need or have purchased your similar services, will need your services, and most importantly, when. And I would also strongly suggest getting 2 or 3 contacts in each department, even though they may have a contract procurement officer. That's the individual that sets up these contracts and services that particular need. In some federal and state agencies, there are multiple people, and they subdivide that work because it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. I'm sorry, my dog is having has an ear infection, so all that rattling you just heard, he's shaking his head. Not to say that he doesn't feel disturbed at this time of the night, where I'm doing my live chat downstairs. Once again, managing change through effective communications. It's all about dealing with those distractions. So moving along, now you've got, we talked about federal, we talked about state. Identify how many federal agencies you want to go for. Again, 2 or 3 is more than enough. Under the state, how many states you can effectively serve, I'd say within 3-hour drive. And then counties. Which counties buy or use your services? Then you whittle down to local municipalities, your city halls. By the way, did you know that many of these city halls under a federal mandate can now purchase up to $34,000 without an RFP, which is a public announcement of a contract? So what does that mean? It means that if you get your name and your capability statement and you identify some of their procurement officers, their operations people, and you can gain favor by being noticed, by being on time, by being qualified, capable, having the right profile and the backup, right? Insurances, bonding. What is it that they buy, and what are those prerequisites so that you can do service with them? Did you know that you can then position yourself to be called at any time to get those kind of contracts? It's taken me about 1.5 to 2 years to do this. Unfortunately, and I've seen this happen quite often, the guard, the individual, the procurement officer, the operations person, retires. They move on. They're transferred to another department. They're moved to another department. You have to start a fresh relationship. I'll bet what I said just a moment ago, have 3 or 4 contacts in each of these pockets or these pools of potential business. We then look outside of that, and we look to, as we mentioned, nonprofits, educational institutions, schools, colleges, high school. I've worked with 3 different educational institutions over the last 15 years. Essex County, I'm very proud of. Burlington County College, which is now Rowan. As you know, the flagship is in Glassboro, New Jersey, southern New Jersey. Very rural, very beautiful. Very new college as far as the architecture and the buildings. And it's almost like it is really, it's taken over Glassboro as a city within a city, an educational city within a city. It's really beautiful. We drove through a couple of times in the past. And now, of course, it's Rowan up here in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, right off 295. So if you're taking a vacation, you should stop by and see the campus. And then, of course, Delaware Technical Community College speaks for itself. It's both kind of city, Wilmington, and then very rural down in Dover and Georgetown. Very rural indeed. So those institutions may have multiple opportunities for you to offer your services. Are you a writer? Can you offer writing skills? You do prose? Do you do acting? These are the arts, right? Well, you don't have to always sell a widget or a cup of coffee or clean sanitary to go into the educational institutions. Maybe they're looking for someone, and over time you can develop a good relationship. I've managed to forge one with that particular institution for 2 years. I hope to continue. I strategize to continue. Then you've got chartered schools, a little bit more difficult to enter into. In some cases, they want certain credentials. So you have to make that decision. But the learning of it, remember, it's not just the institution you're getting into, it's the relationships you're building with people. And by the way, that is absolutely crucial. That really is the selling, the tipping point, if you will, of whether you get in or not. It's the relationships you build. And then we're talking about banks. Banks have what is known as a Community Redevelopment Act need. And again, you can go to legislation. As I've always said, even when I was doing mortgage banking, two things you should read: the IRS code and the state register, which shows what's going on at the federal level. And this is why the disengagement of communication